And we're all set? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's see if I get a pen.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming out this
I have a broken one.
rainy, miserable evening.
No, maybe I don't. I left them in the car.
The first thing on the agenda is meeting minutes from October 18th. I can't even separate the pages. I'm really getting hands here. Okay.
I make a motion that we accept the minutes for October 18th.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none? Bev?
Yes.
Julie?
Abstain?
Paul?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes.
Anybody got an extra pen? I think I left mine in the car.
So you can use that. I don't think I'll need a pen, but.
Let me use Paul's, I got that.
No, it's all right, I do have one.
I got a whole. It's been one of them days.
I just went to a conference and got a whole bunch more.
Excited.
At the last meeting, we said we would end up reviewing the proposed policy and reserve fund transfers. I'm looking to take and probably table this because we don't have a full committee this evening.
Okay.
I'll take that as a motion.
Yep. I make a motion to table the discussion for the next meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Just as a reminder, people were supposed to go review that, do any markups, and we'll discuss that in more detail before issuing it and putting it on the web or whatever. So we'll go to the vote. Bev?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Everybody received a copy of the fall town meeting warrant that was sent out
No.
by, it was sent out yesterday. I forwarded that to everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. We said we would end up
Here.
reviewing, receive and read the voted special town meeting warrant that was issued by the selectmen. Okay. I'm gonna end up just asking some folks to read these, and we'll go through them. I'll have you read the first couple of things, if you don't mind.
All right, Town of Templeton, warrant for fall town meeting, November 14th, 2017. To either other constables of the Town of Templeton in said county, in the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are hereby directed to notify and warn the inhabitants of the precincts of the Town of Templeton, County of Worcester, qualified to vote in the election for the town affairs to meet in the Narragansett Regional Middle School, 460 Ballinsville Road, Ballinsville, in said Templeton on Tuesday, November 14th, 2017 at 7 p.m. Then and there to act on the following articles. Article 1, 2013, 14, and 15 General Fund Operating Budget Deficit Resolution. To see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $223,396.00 to cover operating deficits in the general fund operating budget during the fiscal years 2013, 14, and 15 as follows. Fiscal year 2013, $112,192. Fiscal year 2014, $59,494. Fiscal year 2015, $51,710. And to meet said appropriation by the transfer of said sum from free cash or take any other action related thereto, submitted by the Board of Selectmen, majority vote required.
Just also for clarification on these, as we're reading them, on Tuesday's meeting, when the selectmen were reading this, at the end of the meeting, I asked if the TA or any of the Board of Selectmen were planning on attending the pre-town meeting, and Carter said he had another appointment, and Cam said he had another appointment. I got no response from the other Board of Selectmen's meetings. I'm hoping that some of the people that have articles, because I did state if there was any departments or people that have articles, I was hoping that they would end up coming to the pre-town meeting so that if there was any questions, that they could answer it. So, I mean, as you develop your questions, we still should have questions. If they can't be answered, we'll just have to go on what we know.
Our pre-town is still here November 1st, right?
Yes,
At 7.
yes.
Okay.
And just to take and let you know, I sent that out to Debbie Bilodeau, and she responded that they would end up, it was okay to run on the 28th because she had gotten confused with some other submissions from the town, and she thought it was gonna be running on the 27th. I said, no, the 28th. And it took her a while because she didn't, I guess she had her girl Friday, didn't update her on the receipts in this. And the actual cost, it went up about $3 from last year, so when we budgeted more than what we had last year. I think we budgeted $65 on anticipated increase. So we actually budgeted about $1.20 more than what they're charging for this one, which is good.
Better way to go.
Does that answer your question, Julie?
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry for going on so long.
Okay.
Okay, yes.
Article 2, fiscal year 2015 sewer fund operating budget deficit resolution. To see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $120,838.00 to cover the operating deficits in the sewer fund operating budget during the fiscal year 2015, and to meet said appropriation by transfer of said sum from the retained earnings of the sewer enterprise fund or take any other action related thereto, submitted by the Board of Selectmen, majority vote required.
All right, now my understanding is that this money is coming from the sewer budget. Is it coming out of the free cash that was certified?
That's, on Tuesday's meeting, that's what it sounded like.
Okay.
The selectmen did not get into any detail on the warrant, right, Paul? I mean, when they read it?
No.
Basically, when they actually voted on it, and they basically said Articles 1 to 13, we'll vote on that to approve them, and then they took some others individually, and that's how they adjusted. There was no reading of the warrant articles as you have them here.
Okay, no, is what it is.
Article 3, fiscal year 2017 late bills. To see if the town will vote to authorize the payment of late bills from prior fiscal years in the amount of $63.92, or take any other action related thereto, submitted by the Board of Selectmen, 9/10 vote required.
Also, one of the other things as we're getting through this is, these are just the motions. I asked, because they were talking about possibly having the actual motions ready for next week. Paul, right, isn't that correct?
I don't recall, Will, tell you the truth.
It sounded like they would be ready around the first or the second. And I asked if it was possible for us to get them. And I didn't get a response one way or the other. Is that the administrator had to work on actually establishing the actual motions, even though these are warrant articles. Okay?
Article 4, completing the fiscal year 2018 planned revenue transfer. To see if the town will vote to transfer the sum of $100,000, no cents, from the ambulance receipts reserved for appropriation as planned in presenting the fiscal year 2018 general fund budget to the annual town meeting, to support the fiscal year 2018 general fund operating budget or take any other action related thereto, submitted by the Board of Selectmen, majority vote required. Continue?
Now,
That's-
is this,
That's the budget deficit that they
right,
had for last year.
right, but the 100,000 I thought was going to the ambulance fund,
From.
isn't it?
From
co-
the ambulance fund.
From the, it's coming from the ambulance fund.
That's correct.
But it's just going to the general fund? I thought it was going to the fire department.
It's,
Because wasn't the fire department gonna be cut if it didn't, it doesn't
That's
really.
correct.
Right.
That's
So
correct.
why doesn't it say which line item it's going to?
That's why I asked for the motions, because it's never been really clear on some of the warrant articles as to what the actual motion will be. If we had the motion, we would, at the pre-town, we would get a better idea as to what was actually transpiring.
Okay,
I do recall, the town administrator did state that if this didn't, if this article wasn't approved, 100,000 was going to have to be cut from the fire department budget.
That's correct.
right. But it doesn't state in the article where
Where
the
it's
money is
going.
going.
Right.
And
it
it
just,
should.
yeah, right, it just
Right.
says to support.
Yeah,
Okay.
Can I,
yes.
if we get the warrant, I wanna see the summary. Because at the last annual town meeting, if I had seen the summary, I would have voted differently on some things. In all actuality, the summary doesn't make a difference because you vote on the article. But people don't understand that. They think that they're voting for the whole ball of wax. So the summary can tell you something that may, in the long run, change. So I would like to see the summaries before I decide what I want to do on some of these articles. That's just a heads up for people that learn the hard way.
Taking answering that question, the presentation that Paul made,
Yep.
I believe addressed that, right, Paul? As to making sure that any monies were in the motion, and it was, rather than in the summaries?
No, what we had said in that was that in the event where there was going to be borrowing, that the duration was stated specifically for that note.
Okay, for instance, going back, when you read Article 1, it said, "To meet said appropriation by transfer of said funds from free cash, or take any other actions related thereto." I think that little section is maybe why we thought there was 140,000 in stabilization, and there wasn't.
I
Because you're giving them permission to dig it out of someplace else. That's just my feeling, that's personal.
Right, that's why because of difficulties in past warrants, that's why I suggested to the committee that we go through a reading for this.
Yep.
So you can end up establishing some questions for the pre-town, and I was hoping that we would have some representation from somebody from the management team.
Well, if not, then we'll wait for town meeting, and they'll,
Well, then we can end up
and ask them
putting it
then.
off the town meeting, or we can end up voting a conscious for the information that we have next Wednesday. Go ahead.
You know what? Article 5,
That's scary, ain't it?
fiscal year 2018 operating budget backfill. To see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $30,000 and no cents to supplement the amount appropriated in the fiscal year 2018 operating budget as follows. DPW Building and Grounds, $2,500. DPW Highway, $5,000. Fire and EMS, $15,000. Treasury/collector, $7,500. And to meet said appropriation by transfer of said money from free cash or take any other action related thereto.
Yeah.
Submitted by the Board of Selectmen, majority vote required.
Okay, there's a problem with the fire and EMS amount. They put the comma in the wrong place, or they have an extra zero. I'm
It's
looking at the
20
one online. It
Yeah,
says
no,
15,
27.
comma, 0003, which is actually $150,003.
Well, this one
Oh, you
says
got a different one?
Yeah, you got a different number than
15,000
this.
here.
That
Okay.
must have been an earlier version, because the final
I don't
version,
know. This
that I
is the one I
sent out.
uploaded to my computer today.
that was corrected.
The final version was a PDF file. I think one of the first
Alright.
ones was
Yeah.
a Word doc.
Yep, okay. All right, so that one's correct then, okay.
Yep, says 15,000.
There were,
All right,
there
so how
were
much
a
is-
number of errors,
how
I
much is the
guess,
total
in,
on
in the entire warrant, because the administrator sent out a copy, and right after that, Holly sent out a copy and basically said that her sending it out, there was a lot of errors that had to be corrected. So I don't,
29,
I'm taking it that what we got from the administrator is the final version. If there's any errors,
29,000.
we'll see.
All right.
So on this Article 5, did they, was there any discussion or explanation prior to submitting the article as to why they needed to increase the allocations in these particular budgets?
They said that
There it
they
is.
had, basically, from my just recollection, and and I asked a number of questions earlier, and it's like the administrator basically said that some of this has already been talked about, but some of this, on this particular warrant, on this item, I don't recall some of these being discussed previously. It sounds like they needed to end up increasing those amounts because they under budgeted.
Okay, so they're using free cash to supplement the operating budget.
Again.
No,
This does.
This is
Okay, as long as
in
I'm
addition.
clear with this.
Yeah, I think this is a repair on the,
Treasurer collector.
yeah, and this here is for, the old treasurer's collector took her 110 days of vacation or whatever she had. That was the overlap.
Oh, okay.
It was
That's-
5,000, they upped it to 7,500 somewhere in the last
Okay.
couple of weeks.
Bob was saying that his understanding was that, and he's followed this, is that the portion of it, treasurer collector, when the last treasurer collector left, they had vacation time, and they had initially had it as 5,000,
Okay.
and they had to end up upping it to 7,500 in order to pay that individual.
That was out of last year's fiscal year.
I was gonna say, just to clarify a little bit, what I have heard in the
Yeah.
meetings and so forth, was, I guess, in the transfer, she was supposed to retire at one point. She stayed a month longer and then took her retroactive or saved kitty of vacation time that, with the additional month's salary in there or something, there was a the fund became short because of their vacation time. They miscalculated the vacation time or
Right.
some portion that
But what
brought.
I'm saying is, then, that's an FY 17, because this was done by June 30th, she was gone. It's not an FY 18.
But no, I'm not arguing the fact with you. I was gonna say, was there something, maybe somebody here remembers, was there something, cause it seems to hit me that, it was kept part-time?
Yeah, I think
For the
so.
month after that?
Right.
And, well, and that's what brought it into fiscal year 18, I believe.
No,
Wouldn't
I
it?
think, no, she was gone by the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, that's
That's,
basically
you know.
all I,
Well, all we can end up doing is they can end up,
Right,
if somebody comes, we'll ask that question.
right.
If we don't have an answer, we'll have to just move forward on that.
Okay,
I mean, we can,
right.
on any of these articles, when we have pre-town meeting, it's possible for us to make a substitute motion and change it
Yep.
and break it out as to, different aspects of it.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's always our possibility of what we can end up doing.
Okay.
Julie, would you start with, number 6?
Yeah.
Do you have the updated one, or would you
I
like?
do, no, I found the right
Okay.
one. Article 6, FY 2018 operating budget regarding extraordinary inspection workload. To see if the town will vote to authorize additional compensation for the plumbing/gas and electrical inspectors above and beyond that to be paid from their respective revolving funds to account for the extraordinary inspection workload created by the construction of the new elementary school, and to appropriate the sum of $25,000, no cents, to the account of the Office of Development Services to cover these services and that of the building inspector, and to meet said appropriation by a transfer of said sum from free cash or to take any other action relative thereto. Submitted by the Board of Selectmen, majority vote required.
Okay.
All right, so they did not budget for the unexpected surprise of building an elementary school?
I presume not.
Okay.
The elephant in the
So if you read
room.
the next couple also, Julie, please.
Yep,
That's a good question to,
all right. Article 7, FY 2018 capital expenditures. To see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $167,500 and no cents for a program of capital expenditures as generally identified below. Department, DPW, Building and Grounds. Item boiler replacement, $7,500. DPW Highway, six-wheel dump truck, $160,000. And to meet said appropriation by a transfer of said sum from free cash or to take any other action relative thereto.
on this one here, there was 2 things that passed out. I don't remember which meeting, you gave them to me. Does everybody have them? It's,
Yeah.
one of them is from, it says capital planning, and it's from Alan about the boiler request. And I'll read it, it's just the front page. Dear Capital Planning, the following memo is a request for the purchase and install of a new boiler. The new boiler is needed at the Emergency Management Building. The present boiler is 30-plus years old. The Emergency Management has acquired a grant of $5,240. Please see quote attached of $9,280. I am requesting a total of $12,500 due to the prevailing wage requirements and 25% increase in the cost through the bidding process. I would also be concerned with the possibility of increasing costs for some pipe and fittings repairs during the installation. And it's got the quote from Hoodle Oil. If we don't have a copy of that, I will make that avail, if everybody needs a copy, if they don't have it.
I have it somewhere. I
You-
just
you do
don't know
have
where
it?
I put it.
Yeah, I'm hoping everybody has that. If not, we can probably make a couple extra copies for that.
Now, both of these capital items went to capital planning,
Yes,
and they're now part of the capital plan?
yes.
When did it go to capital?
Just recently, they were put in as a rubber stamp. But the boiler was brought to the capital planning committee on an unforeseen basis. And was put on the capital plan, and review was made by the capital planning board, or capital planning committee. The six-wheel dump truck, was on the capital planning prior to that. That was scheduled for replacement later, but due to deterioration, they needed to up the,
That was also another memo submitted by the DPW director, because he's a building and grounds also. And I'll read that one. The capital planning, the following memo is a request for the purchase of a six-wheel dump truck. The six-wheel dump truck will be fully equipped with the following: one 11-foot plow, a 10-foot sander, and a 10-foot wing plow. The total amount of the request is $177,500. Please see the attached quote of $109,000, equipped with the Cummins motor, $67,300 in a dump body and options, $1,000 for a town radio, $200 for lettering. The 1974 truck, which is scheduled to be replaced with this purchase, is in very poor shape. The lead time for the new truck is 7 months. Due to the lead time and the condition of the present truck, it's my recommendation to put the truck out to bid and order this fall to ensure that it's here and in service as soon as possible. And that's, there was some confusion even at the meeting about whether it was an 84, because there was an 84 truck versus a 94 truck.
yeah, with that, the way that lays out is the 1984 truck is what was listed last April, as needing the new dump body. In the process, I believe, of picking up the new dump body or bringing that new dump body forward, they realized that the 84 truck was not going to meet their needs, was in worse shape than they had thought, so they put that, they were gonna do the dump body onto the 94, but then we went with the Sanders. So the Sanders went on the 94, and they're using the funds from that dump body approval in the spring, which is $17,500, I believe, which was left over for that, to apply towards this purchase of $177,500.
All right, does that need to be revoted?
From which perspective? From capital plan?
No, from town meeting perspective, if that was voted for specifically.
No, I was gonna say, no, I asked about that at the Board of Selectmen meeting.
Right.
And, the comment that I got, if I'm not mistaken, was pretty much they approved a dump body, and they're paying for a dump body kind of thing, you know?
Okay, so
Doesn't
it's not the
matter.
dump body sander,
Right,
okay.
right.
Okay. So are we gonna need copies of this for the pre-town, or everybody has hopefully everybody has a copy of that?
I'll dig it out, I'll find it.
Yes, I do have a copy, I just don't
Okay.
have it with me.
All right. Article 8, the permit the application of bond sale premium to pay project costs, to see if the town will vote to supplement each prior vote of the town that authorizes the borrowing of money to pay costs of capital projects, to provide that, in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 20 of the general laws, the premium received by the town upon the sale of any bonds or notes thereunder, less any such premium applied to the payment of the costs of the issuance of such bonds or notes may be applied to pay project costs, and the amount authorized to be borrowed for each such project shall be reduced by the amount of any such premium so applied, or any other action taken relative thereto. Submitted by the Board of Selectmen, majority vote.
This is an interesting one, because on the earlier portion of the meeting, the folks from the Templeton Elementary School Building Committee were there, and they came in with the bid for the building as $36 plus million. I tried to get clarification on that, and the administrator basically said that this has been talked about previously, because this is, my question was, a couple full was, on this was that the total cost, or was that just for the building, or was that for including the desks, the computers, or any infrastructure, or to complete the building? Because it sounded initially when he read that, it was just for the building, right, Paul?
Well, yeah, but what he explained was it included all the equipment.
Yeah.
So all the computers, all the equipment was included in that figure, he said.
But then he also said that there was $47 million, and they were gonna be on the budget for that. I mean,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was at that meeting also, and my interpretation of that was that it was just confused. I just got more confused by listening to what was said, because we did have, from my recollection, the town administrator say that the $36 million would be all-encompassing of, the school, the desks and computers and so on and so forth. But we had the gentleman in the front here say that the $36 million was for the building, and that would bring the overall cost of the 47 million for the building and desks and infrastructure and so forth in it to less than the 47.
Yeah.
That we would be down from that. So I was left with an answer of,
I don't know.
I don't know, because there was two completely separate explanations at that meeting.
Okay, well, as it relates to this article, this is for the borrowing.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's for all borrowings on
Yeah.
capital projects, not just the
That's an
school.
interesting question, because I followed on whether or not the full amount would have to be borrowed, and they would have to go before the MFOB.
Oh, they didn't like it when you asked that one? Oh,
And
boy.
as soon as I said that, is that I was rebuffed as far as going to the MFOB, because it sounded more like they were going to borrow the 25 or
Piecemeal.
$26 million, the town's portion of it, and kind of they would borrow that money, and as the project went along, every 30 days, they would end up building MSBA for the building, the 60% that they
Right.
would pay. So they weren't anticipating borrowing more than that.
Sounds like we were paying piecemeal or borrowing piecemeal.
It sounds, yes.
And then what happens if the interest rates go up? It's,
I don't
I
know.
don't know,
I
it
just-
sounds, I don't understand it either.
I thought we had to go out and borrow the whole amount.
That's what we were supposed to do.
And that's what I thought,
Project.
excuse me, and I thought that's what they explained, that they
Yep.
were gonna borrow the full amount that the town was funding. And then they would go back frequently on, as soon as a phase was completed, and get reimbursed from the state.
I
Put
see.
that back into the,
I thought they had to
operating
go out for
funds.
the full amount,
right, that was my understanding.
not just the town, the full amount of the project, the
No,
cost of the
no,
project.
he said that was just for the town's portion of it.
All right. Well,
And then the
So there's gonna be the-
reimbursement would go back into the operating funds for the
It was
project.
sounded like they were going to just borrow the town's portion of it.
Yeah.
And as they went on, as the different phases of the building happened, they would go to MSBA on a 30-day period, every 30 days, while the project was going on, and submit that amount of money that they had, the 60% for the building, and they would get reimbursed. It was my understanding of that within a short period after that, MSBA would end up paying. if they do not end up paying in a timely fashion, this could present a problem, but it's, I mean,
No,
that's,
It already created a problem, because they went out and spent money that they didn't have because they were getting reimbursed from the MSBA.
Yep.
We're not tracking it properly, and that's why we had to go out for a short-term, 5 million short-term bond, which comes due December
Right.
1st, because they screwed up
that's
doing it that way.
that's the explanation that we got on Tuesday. I mean, you
Just
know, you
saying.
guys heard that.
I mean,
No, I
that
believe
was,
you.
that was exactly one of the audit points too, was that we didn't have the skill set to be able to manage a project like that, and they
Right.
recommended that we, you know, subcontract that expertise if necessary, so I'm assuming that's what they're talking about doing here, to make sure that we are reimbursed in a timely manner to avoid those issues.
Right, but who's doing the,
I,
right.
I
that's-
asked if there was,
But actually, that's irrelevant to this article.
Right.
Except for the amount of the premium
Right.
that we'll get for the borrowing, because the more you borrow, the bigger the premium.
Yep.
And so the premium would go to the capital, against the capital project, which is a good thing.
no,
But,
You still gotta pay it back.
right, right. But this particular article is just really to adopt that section of Mass General Law, so that we're not in non-compliance,
Yep.
which we have been before, I guess. So,
there was a number of questions that were asked Monday,
yeah, as
and
far
I,
as the school project goes, that's a
And they told
whole
us that
different
we were
ballgame.
we didn't have too much debt, that we were not over the 5%. So I'm taking it that they don't count light and water, or,
they're supposed to.
and if light and water goes under, we own them, so
I
I don't
think
know how
I-
you can do
I think
that.
when Julie went to the MFOB meeting, basically they said that all town debt, even from the enterprises, was town debt. And if it went over the 5%, it was still considered
So
over
I
the
don't know
5.
how.
I mean, I look at this, and I tried to explain that, is that, and I was cut off,
Yeah.
was that even if they had to go to the MFOB for this size project, that the reimbursement for the school would be coming back, and I didn't think it would be an issue with the MFOB even if it was over the 5%, because we were getting reimbursed from the MSBA.
Let's hope MSBA don't go belly up.
There's only so much you can control.
Yep.
So,
All right,
those are some questions you can develop around that.
Yep.
I don't know if we'll get the answers per
probably.
se. Okay. Next one, Julie,
Yeah.
please.
Rescission of of authorized but unissued debt. To see if the town will vote to rescind authorized but unissued debt pursuant to the following town meeting approvals. Purpose Community Septic, December 1st, 2008. Warrant Article 9. The amount rescinded, $195,000. Or take any other action relative to thereto. Submitted by the Board of Selectmen. Majority vote required.
I find this one very interesting because we only got audited from 13 to 17, and what this article says something about way back in 2008.
No, they were authorized to borrow, but they didn't borrow the
Right.
money. So now they're just they're saying they're gonna
Right,
take it off the
but I'm saying,
books,
somehow they
and
got,
that cleans it up,
somehow they got back to the article in 2008
right?
that wasn't acted on.
Or I think people did use it, but they
Didn't use as much.
didn't use as much, or either that or they don't even know it was there, so.
Right. So I don't think this is a bad thing. This is
No.
just cleaning
No, no.
up stuff that's been hanging around for a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah,
so.
it's my understanding that this is the $400,000 note that we borrowed $205,000. We
Yeah.
actually used $205,000 and we're rescinding it to $195,000.
Okay. Next one, please, Julie.
Okay, Article 10, acceptance of statute regarding abandoned funds. To see if the town will vote to adopt Mass General Law, Chapter 200A, Section 9A, which provides a method of dealing with abandoned funds held in the custody of the town, or to take any other action related thereto. Majority vote required.
Doesn't say who brought that forward, though, huh?
It's probably an accounting thing, because they have a whole bunch of checks that are out there
Yeah,
that
yeah.
they've issued that haven't been cashed.
Yeah,
And this just cleans that up.
I think that's what that was, yeah.
they
I
would've
think that's
done
how
it.
they explained it too, is that there was a large amount of checks that were never cashed.
Right, and they're just in small amounts, but it adds up. I think it's a total of like around 35,000.
Yeah,
I think that's the
Yeah.
amount that, so then they can clean that off the books.
okay,
Article 11?
yes.
Okay. Deposits to stabilization and OPEB accounts. To see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $197,500 and no cents to make deposits into its operation, OPEX, and capital CapEx stabilization accounts and the OPEB reserve account as follows. Operation, is $137,500. The capital expenditure, $40,000, and OPEB, $20,000. And to meet said appropriation by a transfer of said sum from free cash or to take any action, any other action related thereto, submitted by the Board of Selectmen, majority vote required.
There was another email that was issued on the 11th of October from the administrator, and it does say some things about the different articles that we have about the deficits and snow and ice and all of that. So I would refer back to that, because that also spells out about OPEB, the capital and the operating budget, the general stabilization.
So do we know what the amount's gonna be for certified free cash?
It was a little over $1 million.
$1,042,000?
Something like that.
Yeah.
It's not much, that's over 4 years.
Well, thank God we weren't allowed
Did
to
something,
spend it.
Yeah, I know.
It didn't sound, that was including, because I asked that, because that was the total free cash all the way up until the 17. Also, it was never spelled out how much was generated in 17. I don't remember if there was an amount for 17 that was published somewhere.
I think it was $100,000.
Was it 100?
But that won't be certified for this town meeting. The $1,042,000 is certified,
Yeah,
so that's money that can be used.
that's correct, but I think the certified cash was also part of 17 too. It wasn't clear to me, because I asked about two things. I said, the recap sheet had not gone in, and it was waiting on the fact that they would end up putting it all depending on what came out of the special town meeting, because if it was voted down to 100,000, then they would have to adjust the budget, and they would have to take that out of the budget, out of the fireman's budget, so, there was some impact. So they would have to adjust the recap accordingly before they set the tax rate.
Okay, so this goes back to Article 4 for the ambulance receipts, the
Yep.
100,000, which is supposed to go to the general fund,
Yep.
but they were gonna take it out of the fire department if it fails, right?
Right, they're gonna have to take that.
So, shouldn't it go to the fire department?
I would think it's,
That's the budget that's short,
yeah,
right?
Yep.
Okay,
Look,
so shouldn't it say that?
now, one of the things I wanna think and end up reminding everybody is, we can end up doing an up or down vote on any of these, or recommend, not recommend, yes, no, and actually make substitute motions, and at some point, to end up giving our recommendations so that it is on the warrant, number one. Number two is that we can end up preparing another document, or if we're allowed, because there was one year that we had some statements that I know that Gordon put on the warrant as to why we voted in the way we did. In other words, he had a paragraph explaining if it was a yes or no vote, and he had about a paragraph there. the last time we ended up at the town meeting, it was just, the moderator just asked for our recommendation, and I was about to give the reasoning why, and he kind of cut me off there and said that it would come under discussion, so that we could end up discussing it then. So if we want, also, we can end up making that statement or whatever, or creating a statement as to why we voted one way or the other separately, and then get up individually or as, or read it as the committee and present that. I mean, those are the possibilities for us to end up doing.
You know what's bothering me about this whole thing? Is that we are doing the same thing that we have done so many other times, use free cash. We for years never maintained the budget. We would end up using free cash to make ends meet. That's why we have nothing in our stabilization. And aren't we in the same position? Because 2 years ago, if the selectmen had done what I would have done, cut back, then when we got this free cash, we would have been able to hang on to more of it.
Well,
But we are where
Well,
we are.
we
But
ended up,
It's like a rat being on this wheel, and he never gets off it.
well, we haven't made recommendations
Yeah, I know,
yet.
but-
So,
Yeah.
when we have pre-town, we can make our recommendations on what we feel free cash should be used for.
Right.
And we have a policy statement
Yeah.
to that effect, to
that's exactly right.
back it up. So it is what it is.
Because it
and-
seems like there's no plan for the future.
Well, no, I mean, we've had years when we've used every single dime of free cash on the operating budget, up to the tune of $800,000.
Yep.
And it doesn't regenerate that fast. You can't run your town
Yes,
that way.
see-
That's why we are in the position we are in.
That's right.
See, one of the things that this community, and you're right, Bev, this community has done that with free cash and used too much of it, instead of putting it away so that they had enough for like the downturn in 2008. There was, and I pointed this out, the town of Lunenburg had a couple $1 million that when 2008 came along, in order to supplement their budget because their valuations on their homes went down and tax revenue didn't come up, they stabilized their tax rate by using some of the stabilization.
Yeah.
They had so much of it. And
Yeah.
if it's not taken from free cash and put in stabilization, that's when you run into problems.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe we could do a substitute motion to put all of it into stabilization and then vote it out. See how that goes.
Lock it up.
But
Really?
as some of our, high government officials say, put it in a lockbox.
It takes a 2/3 vote to put it in, it takes a 2/3 vote to get it out. It's a much higher
So
standard.
we used
Yeah.
to be able to steal money from the
Accountability.
landfill enterprise account, but that isn't there anymore.
No. All right.
How many
Okay,
more?
moving
So
right
ready to do
along.
Article 12?
Yes, Article 12, please.
All right, Article 12, zoning bylaw amendment regarding Baldwinville Road. To see if the town will vote to amend the town's zoning map by rezoning the parcels identified as map 4-06 parcels 19.3, 23, 23.2, 24, 25, 25.1, 26, 26.10, 26.12, 27, 27.1, and 28. Map 4-07, parcels 48.1, 52, and 53 on the records of the Town Board of Assessors from residential agricultural 1 acre RA1 zoning district to highway business zoning district, or take any other action relative thereto. Submitted by the planning board, 2/3 vote required.
If you reference the attachment, there is two maps. One of them is for this. So if you go back and you take a look at that map, you'll end up actually seeing what they're talking.
That, because I'm gonna copy it before I leave. I think
It's
I
been,
gave you
I sent
mine.
it, I sent this
Oh, it's
out.
on there? I didn't,
It's part
All
of
this
it.
is-
okay,
I don't
Oh,
know
I
if it's
didn't-
part of that one.
all right. I didn't get to look at it. No, I don't think so.
All right.
I think I gave you mine the other night. Anyway,
If I can have Paul read the next couple, please?
I'll read them, it's okay, because he's trying to take notes.
Oh, okay.
Discussion and stuff, it's okay. Article 13, zoning bylaw amendment regarding Patriots Road, to see if the town will vote to amend the town zoning map by rezoning the parcels identified as map 2-7, parcels 20, 20.1, 20.5, 23. Am I in the right one? Yeah, I am, 23. 23.1, 23.10, 23.20, 24, 25, 26, 26.1, and 40.1. Map 2-8, parcel 17, 17.2, and 17.4. Map 3-7, parcels 46, 46.1, 46.2, 46.4, 47.2, 48, 49, 50, 53, 53.2, 53.3, 53.4, 53.5, 54, 55.1, 55, and 55.1. Map 3-8, parcels 7.6, 7.7, 16, 23, 24, 24.1, 25, 26, 27, 29.1, 32, 35, 35.1, 36, 37, 38, 38.1, 38.2, 39, 41, and 43 on the record of the town's Board of Assessors from residential agricultural 2-acre RA2 zoning district to highway business zoning district, or to take any other action relative thereto, submitted by the planning board, 2/3 vote required. And there's a map.
Yeah, there's also another map for that.
Can
Yes.
I asked a member of the planning board if they had notified abutters, and he said no. All they needed to do was put it in the paper and, on the website. So some people, somebody's going away, somebody's
Well,
gonna be very surprised.
this is their process, and this
Yep.
is,
Yep.
okay, the next one, please.
All right. This is the great one, okay.
Article 14.
Yeah, this is,
Article 14, acquisition of certain lands of the Walter Fernal Corporation for conservation and passive recreation purposes, to see if the town will vote to, A, acquire by gift or by purchase pursuant to Section 8C of Chapter 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and any applicable law, any or all portions of and interests in approximately 102 acres of land supposedly owned by the Walter Fernal Corporation, located off of Fernal School Road and Freight Shed Road, and identified on the town's assessing maps as map 2-7, parcel 40.6, 35.46 plus or minus acres. Map 2-7, parcel 40.3, 30.69 plus or minus acres. Map 2-7, parcel 40.4, 23.3 acres plus or minus, and map 22-7, parcels 40.5, 12.64 plus or minus acres, with all such land to be under the custody, care, and control of the Conservation Commission for the public open space, conservation, and passive recreation purposes. And B, appropriate the sum of $259,150 for the acquisition and all costs incidental and related thereto, with said appropriation to be met by a transfer of $180,405 from the Community Preservation Act account entitled General Budgeted Reserve, and $77,745 from the Community Preservation account entitled Open Space, with the expenditure of said sum to be contingent upon the award by the Mass Division of Conservation Services, Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, of a local acquisitions to the town of a local acquisition for natural diversity land grant of at least $155,490 and no cents to reimburse the town for the expenditure of such sum, with 70% of such reimbursement amount to be deposited into the Community Preservation General Budgeted Reserve account, and II 30% of such reimbursement amount to be deposited into the Community Preservation Open Space account, and further that after June 30th, 2019, any residual unexpended portion of such appropriated sum shall not be further expended, and 70% of this unexpended portion of such sum shall be restored to the Community Preservation General Budgeted Reserve account, and 30% of the unexpended portion shall be restored to the Community Preservation Open Space account. And C, authorize the Conservation Commission to apply for and accept such a land grant and such other grants or programs for which the town may qualify for such purposes. And D, authorize the Board of Selectmen, with approval of the Conservation Commission, to grant the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Division of Fish and Wildlife, or any organization whose mission is to protect, preserve, promote, and enhance open space, a conservation restriction on all or any portions of said land, preserving such land as public open space and public conservation and public passive recreation land in perpetuity, in accordance with sections 31 through 33 of Chapter 184, Section 12 of Chapter 44B of the Massachusetts General Laws. And E, authorize the Board of Selectmen to execute, deliver, grant, and accept such deeds, restriction instruments, and agreements as it deems reasonable, appropriate, and in the best interests of the town to be necessary to effectuate the purposes of this article, or take any other action relative thereto. Submitted by the Community Preservation Committee, majority vote required. I'm sorry.
All of that being read, per se,
I read it.
here is the, by courtesy of Bob, he has gotten the maps showing what we're talking about as far as the land.
Thank you.
Just to make a comment here, maybe I'm missing it somewhere in here, but I thought that one of the issues on this article was that there was gonna be some place where it says that it had to be, the grant, maybe this is it.
No, it doesn't say, the 60%, no.
Yeah, it doesn't.
They did talk about the grant that they're gonna end up getting reimbursed. They talked about 60%. It can be up to 70%, but they put in, they're talking about 60% being reimbursed. If they did not get the 60% and it was less than the 60%, this would not go through. Is that,
Yeah.
is
yeah.
that
I believe
summing it up correctly?
That might just be the 155, 490 might be
Yeah, that
number.
could be the
Right,
155.
rather than putting it as a percentage, it might just put it as a
Right.
number. Okay.
Rather than putting a percentage, they actually put the dollar amount.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the total expenditure for these parcels is the 259,150, but it's coming from CPC money, community
Yep.
preservation money, from the two different accounts.
Yep.
And they hope to get reimbursed 155,490.
If
That's
they
correct.
don't, the article falls apart.
Okay,
That's the requirement of the thing. If they don't get the 60%,
right.
it won't happen. And also, and I, just for those viewing the CPC funds, the way it was explained by John, are matching funds with the state.
Right.
So only half of those funds are actually town funds,
That's correct.
that we'd be using to purchase that land.
Just,
Right, but it's still that pool of money that's
right,
town
just to
money.
reflect on it.
Correct, yeah.
CPC funds are basically about 3% figured on the tax rate above 100,000. And that's what you end up paying as part of your taxes. The state matches, and I think it's somewhere in the vicinity, last night, I think it was over $100,000. And I can't remember the exact amount, but it was around 100,000 plus dollars that the state reimburses us also, which is, they actually go all the way up to the 3%. We're one of the few communities that receives the full 100% of the 3%. The larger towns get much less, they get like 1%, or if they don't qualify, it's because of the social economic, as far as what they look at, the town as far as, people's incomes and stuff, I guess.
Yeah, I look at this and, you know, there are just a couple of caveats, and it's not really to do with the funding mechanism. I don't really have a problem with using CPC money this way. But it's, you know, what are we as a town responsible for? Are we responsible for the roads now? Are we responsible for the buildings that are on these parcels?
Well,
Yep.
Those are the things.
I called Kirk today. Kirk, Mr. Machete and I were both on the reuse committee. We had 2 meetings, and Phillipston hadn't been accepted into the group, so we were supposed to meet again, but then they decided that because I was on the advisory board, I couldn't be on the reuse committee, which made no sense. But anyway, I asked Kirk, I said, did the road situation get resolved? And he said, yes, it did. The state is responsible for the road going through, the main road going through the Fernal School. They tried to stick the town with it, and that didn't work because it was never really a public way. They had signs up saying that we couldn't go, you are not supposed to drive through. Now, when I was on the reuse committee, I was under the impression the map that they had at that time looked like we had a bunch of little kind of outbuildings, and it looked like land that like nobody would have wanted. But Bob checked into this, I guess, and he said, no, that mostly this is a lot of wetland.
Yeah, I was gonna say, from looking at it, I mean, I printed out a different map with the wetlands, DEP marks on it, and so forth. But, and I have copies of the other one that I can give out if you'd like. But looking at the property, it doesn't look like any of these 4 parcels have buildings on them.
Good.
They are all on the main road, they all have access. From discussing this with John last night, the reason that these 4 parcels are even available is because there was, I guess, a screw-up that was started back in the 1800s, and the corporation didn't even know they owned this property. Or the state thought they owned it, but it's actually, these 4 parcels were owned by the Walter Fernal Corporation, which then when, I guess we had gone through something with them, then we taxed them on the property, which created a little bit of a, it's like contention. And I asked for the thought process over the whole piece because there's, as you may know, there's a piece over here, it's listed as 40.7. It's 300 and it's not, it's on this map here, it shows as, I think it's A on this map, it's the 2
No.
that cross the road. That's actually a roughly 350 acre parcel. I guess the entire plan here is for, if the town of Templeton picked up these 4 sites, the Mass Department of Wildlife is in process to pick up the 350 acres, and they would be more likely to do that, it would be more continuing on happening if the town purchased these parts. So it was kind of presented as it's a step to more open space in town, and,
Well, to preserve that parcel.
Yeah,
the
in
huge
whole.
2,200 acres, right.
right,
So, all right, so none of these lots that this article proposes to purchase have any businesses on them right now?
not as far as their, no.
I'm gonna take a ride up there and look.
The town barn, you know, the barn that's up there with the cows and all that, that's on a different parcel.
Yes, yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know if you know the parcels.
I don't know the parcels, I've been up there, I
Okay,
don't
well,
really know where I am.
I can pass these down, and, just tell you
This is like toward the back of the property.
it's actually, kind of all over the property, but it's on the back side I'd
Yeah.
say, the back half. It's 40.6, which is down center left.
Oh, I see it, yep,
Yeah, 40.5, which is to the right of that and
yep.
north. 40.3, which is further up from that. And then 40.4, which is way over on the left upper top,
Across the road.
which is actually the swamp on Royalston Road.
Lot D,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that, why would we buy a swamp? Because no one's going to be able to build anything or do anything with it. That doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't, it's crazy.
I
Why?
think it's a way, I mean, a lot of this land is already under, what was it, chapter, I forget what chapter.
It's gotta
Act
be under
60,000.
farming, like,
RA5 designation,
Right.
agricultural 5.
Right. So it's a way to try to preserve it so it's not developed.
yeah, but it's not gonna be developed anyway.
Well, you don't know that. I agree with you about Lot D, but I think they just threw that in to get across the road, because then you go up on Elliott Hill, and there's a whole, but they own land up there as well. So it's a foot in the door, Bev.
To answer Bob's question, in part, is that if something's even designated as a wetlands area, there's portions of the law that say you can't build it. There's also portions of the law that said that
You can
you
replicate
can
it.
end up building in certain areas with restrictions. So, I mean, in preserving this is preserving some areas that are dubious to end up being constructed by somebody. And it could cost, I mean, it's not bad to end up preserving your
Yeah,
wetlands
but
area.
what are they gonna do with the rest of it? That's what I'd like to know.
Well, if there's 102 acres, how much is
That's a-
swamp?
Yeah, I don't know, that one right there, I'll have to take a
Yeah.
ride up and look.
Yeah,
Sounds like this is a hurry-up deal.
Doesn't look like all of it is.
The two lots look particularly wet, the bottom 4.6, 40.6, and the upper 40.4.
Yeah, and there's only a portion of it that look wet on this,
Yeah.
if you look at this.
Yeah, and I guess that 40.5 lot here, at the bottom side of that, there's supposedly a pond and such that makes it a nice walking area and, the like.
It's really kind of strange that the article reads that supposedly,
that's hysterical.
Yeah, I think that's because of that,
The lawsuit?
the lawsuit and the issues that came up, over time that, I don't know what the result of that's supposed to be,
Okay.
but supposedly sounds awful odd.
it's up to people, they can decide.
All right, next one, please.
All right. Article 15, amending the general bylaws regarding date of town meeting and election. To see if the town will vote to amend Article 2 of its revised general bylaws as follows, or to take any other action relative thereto. 1, by amending Article 2, Section 1, by deleting May in the first sentence and replacing it with June. Article 2, by amending Article 2, Section 2 to read as follows. All business of the annual town meeting, except the election of such officers and the determination of such matters as are required by law to be elected or determined by ballot, shall be considered at a meeting to be held on the third Tuesday of May, and must be completed on or before the fourth Tuesday of May, at a time and place designated by the Board of Selectmen. Submitted by the Board of Selectmen, majority vote required.
What this does is they take the town election and put it after the annual town meeting. They're moving it from May till June. Historically, that's not what we have done in this community. It's done the other way around. The election is held and then annual town meeting. And there's been some discussion by the
Just don't say
selectmen.
traditionally.
Yeah, geez, oh, don't say that.
Don't
Don't
say
use that.
traditionally, okay?
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea.
No,
okay? Because it gives continuity for the people who are elected
Right.
to be at the town meeting
And actually
And
know what's
answer-
going
and-
on.
and-
Answer-
and answer questions for a
Yeah,
budget that they
right.
are familiar with, or should be familiar with. We'll put it that way, should be familiar.
responsible for it.
That's correct.
Right, our
Supposedly.
supposedly responsible.
Yes. So that's not, it's not a bad idea.
No,
It's just that this is what they're changing.
yeah. And
Okay.
did this come from the Collins, or is this something that they just proposed?
Did they say that again, Julie?
Is this from the Collins Institute? Remember how they had some company looking at
No,
all the
th- th-
bylaws?
this
or
was,
something?
this particular one was, I believe, was brought forward by Doug.
Okay. Yeah, because we had talked
Yeah.
about moving town meeting from Saturday to,
Right.
back to a weekday.
You get
Right,
there
during
and
the
they don't
weekday.
even know what they're
Right.
doing.
And if you look at some of what was handed out to us, it was
Yeah.
a list of town meetings done during the week and also on Saturdays in the count. And I think somebody brought forward that some of the count at the last meeting was, I think it was Cricket that said it was incorrect because she actually asked for the count, and the count that was on that paper was higher than what she was told at the meeting. So I don't know at what point they took the amount, whether people walked in and left or what, I have no idea.
Well, I don't think they keep track of people as they leave. I think it's
Just
the registers as you go
Right.
in. They check your name off, and that's the count of the people who were on record as being at that meeting. There's no. All right.
So you can end up having, you can have 500 people sign in, you get to the last, the last
Nobody's there,
article,
yeah.
and the
There's
last
3 people.
50 people are gonna be stuck with
Yep.
voting on that one, very possible.
Yep.
Okay,
All right, Article 16.
Yeah.
FY 2018 Templeton Cable Committee, TV Committee, to see if the town will vote to appropriate the additional sum of $65,000, no cents, for the fiscal year 2018 operating budget of the Cable TV Advisory Committee in total in the aggregate, $150,505 and no cents, and to meet said appropriation with the receipts and revenues of the Cable Enterprise Fund, or take any other action relative thereto. Submitted by the Board of Selectmen for the Cable Committee, majority vote required.
okay.
That's a chunk
The
of
whole
change.
warrant was just put up today. It has the signatures of the select board, but it also, the one that was put up on the website by the town clerk, also had the signatures of the constable. Both his name and just so everybody is aware. If you look at the listing of town meeting, it went up, just went up today.
Okay.
It
My
was,
grandfather, my great-grandfather was a constable, East Templeton, before they had a police department.
so that's what we'll be voting on
Right.
come next week. And to go along with that, I have some other stuff to go, that was actually sent out, and I think I forwarded that to everybody. This is
So my question is, I don't know if we'll get an answer, but looking at the amounts to come out of free cash was $643,396, if I did the math right.
Yeah,
And if there's $1,043,000,
so that's only 400,000 going in.
so what happens to that? Why,
They're breaking it up into the general fund, the capital,
no, that includes that amount.
that,
That amount was
Oh, okay.
197.5 to put it into
oh,
capital.
then the rest of it be used, the free cash will be used for some of the articles. the
No,
four.
that's with all
Oh,
the articles that
oh,
take
really?
money out of free cash, come up to $643,396.
That's a good question.
You weren't supposed to add that up.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, I thought that was our job, Bev, I don't know.
Oh, gee
All right.
whiz, you're gonna get slapped
I
on.
think we should check the math before pre-town.
Yep.
to see, and ask the question, where's that money gonna go?
Yeah.
That's like about $400,000.
Should go in stabilization.
It should go in stabilization, in my opinion.
Okay. This was sent out
without a
on the
doubt.
23rd, today's the 20,
Because if it goes in stabilization, then you can have, if there's an emergency and something comes up,
Yep.
and you need to expend money, you can expend it
Exactly.
because it's in
I think what they-
stabilization.
I
But if
think-
it's just floating out there,
I
you
think
can't,
what-
until it's certified as free cash the
if
next year.
memory serves me, if memory reminds me of what the administrator said, to hold back some free cash, so during the year, if you need money to take it, end up getting it out of that free cash and not put it into stabilization. I think that's what he ended up saying. I would have to,
Just, yeah, my recollection is after all the money that was, let's say, for, backfilling the budget and so on and so forth, there was supposed to be, the amount that was left over was supposed to be broken up, so that 50% of it was gonna stay as the operating, in the operating budget, let's say, reserve cash, free cash, whatever. Then it was gonna go 35% into stabilization, 10% into, the CapEx, and 5% into OPEB or
Yeah, but
something.
you
There's no
added
article
those
to
up.
do that.
Yeah,
so what they're doing is they're holding back free cash,
Right.
You'd end up with a slush
so that it's
fund.
available to use, if-
Uh-uh.
and they're probably gonna have, that's why he made the statement to some of the members earlier that this next year's budget may not be sustainable. That's why he's holding the free cash, so that if they don't get the revenue with the expenditures that we have, he has the money that they can end up paying.
You know
But it
what,
still
this-
has to be a
Voted at
warrant
town meeting,
article to
right.
use it.
Yeah,
So what is the
This is like-
difference?
this
It's
is like
instead
a
of it going into the stabilization fund, which requires, what, a 2/3 vote?
yeah, he has free.
It'll be
reign.
just a majority vote if they keep it in free cash and
Right.
do it as a
Or it-
warrant article.
Unless they have a slush fund and nobody gets a vote.
Well, they can't use it without a vote, so, I mean, it's not a.
if it's just floating free cash, that's right, they're gonna have to take and end up
Right.
getting a vote to use
But
it.
you would get a much better bond rating if you put it into
It's a
stabilization.
stabilization.
And if it's something that we really need, people will approve it.
Right.
Some communities do hold back money as a portion to free cash and stable, but of course, their stabilization fund is fully funded.
Yeah, I
Right.
could see that, but not the way we are.
Right now, we're below 1% without any of this town meeting.
Yes.
We're below 1%.
Yeah, and we probably
So-
won't even get to the 5% from what I could
No,
figure.
I think it's
Oh,
gonna
no.
take us a couple of years to get up
Yep.
there, and that's fine. It took us a long time to get to where we are, so it's gonna take time to get better.
See, the way I look at it is that we have to live within our means, and we haven't done that. So if you scrounge every penny that's floating around, you're still not living within your means. And we shouldn't have to scrape and scrounge to meet a budget. If our budget is too big, then we have to do something about it, and they haven't done that. And it's just, that's why we go through these cycles. Not gonna change.
Along that line, Beth, that's one of the concerns with this that I had, and I don't know who mentioned it earlier, but it was within the breakdown of the, stabilization, CapEx, and so forth, that, those are over 4 years.
Yeah.
Those funds are over 4 years, so if we take 1/4 of that number, that's pretty much, what we can expect as our budget's going now to put in, in future years. That doesn't get us far.
Our revenue,
If you
I don't
take
see
1/5
where our
of our.
revenue's gonna increase. Where are we gonna get more revenue? It will take years, and we have so much debt because we haven't done anything to the roads. Somewhere down the line, we have to draw a line and live within our means, and I'm sorry if that's all we have, because that's all we have. And to make your artificial revenue so you can make a budget look good, it falls apart sooner or later. You know, we got bailed out. What if we didn't get this free cash?
Well, no, that's,
Yeah,
it's the town's money.
it
They
is.
had,
Yeah, but, I mean, what if something happened? You don't even know what if
Right.
it didn't come along? So what happens next year if we don't get free cash? Or
Right.
God knows how much we're gonna get.
Yeah, and that's my concern for
Well,
next
if there's any
year.
free cash left over that they haven't spent,
Goes into general fund.
that will also be turned to free cash.
Goes into general
But there
fund.
may not be any additional monies, you're absolutely right,
That's right.
generated above that 400,000 that they're not using this year
We
and
keep-
setting aside.
We keep doing this, and it's just, you can't. You know, if we had a couple businesses to come in and we could get some income from them, but, you know, and people are moving into town. All right, Luann said that houses are selling well. Well, the thing is that these kids don't stay put. They keep moving. My son-in-law is worked at Bose, well, he worked at Thompson Financial. And then root is bottom. So then he ended up at Bose, and he worked all over the world. He got a 5-year job done in 3. Now he's probably gonna move to California. And it's the same way with these young kids. You know, so you,
Okay.
yeah, I don't know, there's gotta be an answer.
The administrator sent this to us as a follow-up to the whole warrant, and I'll just read it. In the run-up to the fall town meeting, we are beginning to think about how most effectively produce a package of the warrant articles, summations, and recommendations. Before we go into the effort of doing that, I am wondering if you have begun to think about how you would put the package together and whether or not we might be able to produce a joint package. We are going to hold off a bit at your end, but please respond at your convenience. I think he wants us to respond by the 6th, whether or not, I mean, my thoughts have been like we have done in the past. We end up at the pre-town meeting, we come up with our recommendations, which are submitted to the town clerk to put on article by article, given to the administrator, showing him what the article is and what our recommendations are, so that he can put it onto the warrant as part of the entire package. So when somebody ends up looking at this and the package, they'll end up submitting it by the selectmen, but they'll have advisory committee's recommendation as to Article 1 as an example.
Well, that's kind of what we did for the Maytown meeting,
Yeah,
and I would not have voted the way I did if I had seen the summaries that got put on after we did that. Because the summaries were not exactly
it's not unusual for advisory committees on a particular items on the warrant to hold off their recommendations. You can actually put this on the warrant, is saying that the advisory committee will end up making their recommendation at town meeting.
okay.
I was gonna say, I like that approach, or, you know, unless we can, personally, my personal opinion
independently.
is I think the summary should be removed. And the reason I say that is because if they
Yeah.
can't be relied on by the voter to be accurate, they shouldn't be there.
Yeah,
You know, and we were shown that with the police department.
yeah.
You know, it said on there over 2 years, and then that was changed. That is the only reason why I voted for it. I wouldn't have if it would have been for a longer period of time. So it does make a difference.
And probably 95% of our population doesn't understand that never happened. That it's a whole different ballgame now. Because these kids, the younger people, they're busy. They don't have time to do all this kind of stuff. So if they go to vote at town meeting, if God help they come, they believe what they read. And if you can't believe what you read, you shouldn't be there.
Well, I was gonna say, that's the
Yeah, right.
implied purpose of the
That's
summary,
why I
is
don't
to
wanna vote
explain the
ahead of
article.
time. If they're gonna put summaries in there that kinda aren't etched in concrete, no.
Who's responsible for writing the summaries?
Probably,
TA, well, TA, basically.
So,
Because the selectmen have voted for this warrant, he will be making the motion and any summaries. I mean, that's how it's happened in the past. I mean, that's how the article for the police station got done, is the warrant was accepted by the Board of Selectmen. And then even up and, let me,
Just leave that.
initially,
It
let's
was.
put it away.
It
It was
was.
initially voted by them and changed thereafter, okay? But that's a different story, and I don't wanna go back to that. But he ended up making the motions and the summaries after that, which were the ones that were submitted. It was the warrant that was submitted that day.
and what happened was, we got to the meeting, and there you are in front of all these people, and you're really kinda hard to sit down and soak up that information. I don't even
It
think.
did have in the summaries for the police
Yeah,
station,
yeah.
it would be a 2-year debt exclusion. And based upon the summaries, this is my reading of it, the voters voted for that
It
article,
was a debt exclusion, yeah.
right, as a debt exclusion for 2 years, because it was sold as a debt exclusion for 2 years, which would come off
Before the
before the
schools-
school would go on.
So it sounds to me like right now, they don't even know yet, at this minute, what it's gonna cost to do that. And.
Depends on how many
and
years the debt
How long it's gonna be. I mean, this is crazy. That's not what people voted for.
Right, right, as it stands today, my understanding is that the debt exclusion for the police station will probably be more than to 2 years. How many years, I have no idea until they actually go out for bid and go out for the bond or ban.
And the $1.74 for the school was very deceptive.
Well, we'll talk about that in the next portion, because I
But that's
wanna
why,
update
that's why,
everybody.
as far as,
My thing right now is that I wanna take and get us thinking about, we should consider putting the recommendations and submitting them and having them go on the warrant that everybody gets to see.
all right, because remember at town meeting, we were going to explain why we voted, and they didn't let us do that. Something happened that we could not explain ourselves.
He said that we could end up being, that could be part of the discussion.
Oh, we can now.
That's what he said, because I tried to do that, and he said, no,
He who,
the moderator.
Oh, the moderator?
okay,
He controls the meeting.
right.
Because last May it fell flat.
And there's conflicting information about what can be on the table outside of the meeting.
Yep.
He says he wants to control that, and you have to get approval if you put it out there. If we put our recommendations on the warrant, it was nothing separate, and if we decide that they can end up making some statements as to why we thought that way as separate things, there's no paperwork to do that. We would have to get up and present those.
that's fine. But I mean, so, are you making a motion that we are going to submit our recommendations, to be included in the warrant articles?
I would think so, because we could end up doing, you could withhold a recommendation until town meeting. I mean, you could end up saying yes, no, or no recommendation.
So are we doing the recommendations or no?
Yes, on some articles, you may not wanna take it, end up making that recommendation until town meeting. But I,
So it's not a blanket, we can pick and choose per warrant
Yes.
article whether we're gonna put a response in or not?
Right.
All right, okay.
we can submit, as an example, recommendations on articles 1 to 5, and from 5 to 10, we will end up withholding our recommendations until town meeting.
I wanna read the summaries first.
Well, that's where I was getting to. Do we want them to provide to us the summaries behind these warrant articles before
first.
we provide our recommendations?
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons I ended
Yeah,
up
we could
putting.
do a motion and see if we can get them to do that.
That's one of the reasons I asked for the motions, if the motions were gonna be available for pre-town meeting. And that was a kind of quasi maybe that we got from they have to be ready. He's indicated that they would be ready by the 6th, which is the workshop for the selectmen. That would be on November 6th.
And the pre-town meeting is?
The
The
first.
14th.
Okay,
Oh, excuse me, the pre-town meeting is the 1st,
is the first?
yes.
Okay. So the answer is no, he's not gonna have them ready before the pre-town meeting.
Doesn't sound like it.
Okay. But do we need to have the summaries before the pre-town meeting?
That's part of the motions that he will be writing up.
So they're not gonna be ready.
All right, so then we'll decide at pre-town what we're gonna do.
Yep.
All right.
It'll be up to us to decide how we're gonna end up addressing each one of these.
You know, there might be some articles where it really doesn't matter what
Right.
the summary says, because it's just, it is what it is.
Well, do we want to ask for specific articles, the summary statements for specific articles prior to our pre-town meeting so that we can get our recommendations to him in time?
You can probably ask for him, but the way he put it, it didn't sound like he was gonna have them ready for the
Well,
pre-town.
maybe we could help prioritize which ones he writes first. And, you know, let's spell out which ones like you just said, Julie, there's
Right.
many of them, we don't really need a summary statement.
It doesn't
We
seem to
understand
be
what
any
it's
harm
for.
in doing that either
Right.
way.
All right, so
Yeah.
if you look at Article 1, that was to pay off balances with free cash money, 223,000.
Which we have no
I-
choice on,
Right,
correct?
you either do that or you reduce your budget by that amount of money.
Yeah,
So,
that's what
you know,
that's what the
that's a
DOR
no-brainer.
said, that they
Right.
were gonna, if the town voted it down, then they would have to cut the budget.
Okay, so Article 2, let's look at it. Sewer deficit, that's coming out of their money.
Yep.
They have their money,
So we can-
so that's up to them. Whatever the summary says it's gonna say, and, you know, it's gotta get fixed. Article 3, in my opinion, prior year bill, kind of a no-brainer, it's a 9/10
Right.
vote, it's up to the people. Article 4, that's one I want the summary on. Article 5, I want that summary. Backfilling the budget, you put that right in the title, that's awesome. Article 6, I would like to see that summary. Article 7, I actually don't have a problem with.
Yeah.
That's the capital expenditures.
Article 6, I would have some questions there
Let them put
because
that
of the
in.
building, but that's,
I did say
Yeah.
Article 6,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Article 7,
oh, excuse me, 7.
yeah, that's the capital expenditures. I think that's pretty self-evident. It either explains it or it doesn't. Article 8, I'd want to see it.
Really?
Yeah, too many times we adopt these things and then we find out it's not really exactly what they said it was gonna be.
Okay.
Amazing how that happens.
Yeah,
Article 9.
I'm
should be
okay with Article 9.
Yeah.
Article 10, I don't have a problem with 10. 11, I would want to see the summary. Article 12 and 13 aren't money articles. That's gonna be up to the people, and it's a
Yep.
2/3 vote. Article 14, it's CPC money, which is still town money. It has to go before town meeting. I would like to see that summary, because
Oh,
supposedly owned by bothers me.
Time out. Here's an email, October 25th, 1:18 PM. You'll find attached a final warrant for the town meeting on 11/14. Number 3 says, I will shortly begin production of a handout with summaries and motions. If you would like to have your recommendations published as part of that document, I need them by 11/6, so I'm sorry, that means he's not gonna have them ready.
Yep.
So we're gonna have to tell
Right.
him that.
So these are the ones that we
Yep.
would like to see.
Yep.
If you want to
you
include
have
our
those down?
recommendations.
Yes.
Right.
So 14, we saying, and,
15, I don't really have a problem with 15.
okay.
16, I don't really have a problem with that one.
Okay,
It's coming out of their own money, and it's their budget, and they have a whole committee to do that.
I think the thing with the police station hit more than anything, the fact that they blatantly told him this is what it is, and then it isn't at all, and that's really not okay. It's not honest. Maybe it was, something they couldn't help, but just the same, it's not okay.
So the request that the town administrator has made is, can we bundle some of this together?
Yep.
Include our recommendations
That's
on
correct.
the motions and warrants that get published?
Yep.
Okay, so is there a motion here to say that we will provide them to him by the 4th? If he can provide to us
Yep.
the summary statements for these following articles, 4, 5, 6, 8, 11,
Okay.
and 14. Okay? You want me, so a motion by me?
yep.
I'll second it.
I'd like to take in and put the caveat that the scribe end up putting that forth since he made the motion, because he has a good idea as to how it should be written up.
Yeah.
Win the prize.
By November 4th,
If we have the summaries
If-
by November 1st.
if
Freetown.
the.
Well, you'll have it to him on the 6th, by the 6th. I mean, we have from the 1st, which is next Wednesday,
Right.
Yeah,
till the following Monday, so, I mean, I don't wanna take it end up saying that we're gonna submit those by the 4th,
Well, we
because
have
that's
to have a meeting to discuss.
right.
the 1st.
So our first is our pre-town, so
Pre-town.
if we have the summaries, that will help inform our
Right.
recommendations, or whether we withhold our recommendations,
correct,
or
that's-
what we're gonna do,
Yeah.
right? So we need them by the 1st,
Right,
if they're written, and if we don't get them, then we've at least made the request.
yeah.
Okay, so we need the summary statements for articles 4, 5, okay.
Sounds good.
By November 1st. Okay. As part of this motion, who's gonna notify? Oh, you want me to notify
Yes,
the town
yes.
administrator? Okay, okay.
Yeah, have to write it up to him and say what we're looking for. Yes, that we will end up submitting, and they will be available by November 6th, our recommendations to put on the warrant. And that, but we do need the summaries for these particular articles
Mhm.
by pre-town on the 1st,
Got it. Okay,
Yep.
which gives him 3 days. He can end up submitting to us even on the 1st, if we had the summations during,
Right, I mean, even that day, if we get them that day, we meet at night, it's
we
at
need it for
7.
that meeting
Yeah.
tonight.
I mean, and if you put that out today, tomorrow,
Yeah.
if he reads his email over the weekend, that's fine. If he doesn't till Monday, he's got
It's
3
still-
days.
Right.
Okay.
And it's something he's gotta work on anyway, so,
Yeah, he's gotta work on that anyway, so.
right.
And I think he said he has already, was going to start those already.
Right.
Okay, so that was seconded by Beverly, was it?
Yep.
Okay.
And, oh geez, do I still have this in here? I don't.
I don't like the ending of a lot of those articles where it says, or, they say they're gonna take it out of free cash, or
Someplace else.
someplace else, because the someplace else is what,
There is no place else left.
well, but no, I mean, I think that's, have to sit down someday when I have nothing else to do and figure out how come we didn't have 140 in stabilization,
Yeah, that's,
you know?
no, yeah.
So, do you wanna read that to us?
I gotta wordsmith it a little bit better,
Okay,
but
all
it's
right.
basically what
So we have a motion, the basic motion is to take it, end up saying, yes, we will end up providing our recommendations
Yeah.
prior to November sixth, or by November sixth, to be put on the warrant. And that we would like to take it, end up having the summaries for these 6 articles by pre-town meeting on the first, to help us in making our recommendations.
Okay.
Yep.
The motions, maybe the motions and the summaries on these
Okay.
to help
Yeah.
clarify.
Yeah.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Bev,
Yes,
Julie,
Yes,
Paul,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. Okay.
that'll make him happy.
well,
I don't care.
Couple of things under old business. Everybody got the schedule that they put out way back when, in the countdown to the final town meeting. They didn't give us the warrant until the 1 day later, but that's not an issue. The advertisement for the paper is supposed to be going on the 24th. The warrant is gonna be posted on the 25th, which it was. I believe, no, it was posted today, so she didn't receive it till yesterday. The advertisement is gonna be in the paper on Saturday, and the fall town meeting on the 24th, so we're pretty well
Yep.
into the schedule and on time.
That's
Okay. Some things to take and clean up that you received a lot of paperwork is, and I don't know how much the impact is gonna be to your decision on the pre-town meeting, but please take a look at the FY18 first quarter report that was issued by the accountant. It's a long document.
Got that
I'm not gonna go into the expenses.
No.
We'll do it maybe on the 15th.
Yeah.
Just go into that.
Is it complete this time?
no, it's the same.
No, it's the
Same.
same.
The budget to
God.
actual is in the same format.
The other thing that was, and I forwarded to you, there was a lot of warrant summaries that the administrator sent to us. I took and printed out a couple. There was,
I didn't get those,
Yeah,
I sent those out,
I
When,
didn't get them.
okay?
when?
What it is it's a payment and how much for the different entities. And one of it is real long, and there's shorter ones. And basically, he's saying, here's the warrant summaries. We can generate these, and it's only about 6 hours of time to take and generate them. Do you want these?
Oh, the checks.
The check
Oh, the
summary.
check.
The
ledger.
checks,
The
yeah.
check ledger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry, maybe I used the wrong terminology. So everybody did get those.
I don't think I got the actual, I don't know, maybe there was an attachment at the bottom that I missed.
There was attachment in the middle, and you had to take and open it up, unzip it, and there was,
All right,
it spit out a whole bunch of them.
I could die, I could drown in paperwork, you know that, don't you?
all right.
I know.
I think the better bet is to do, number 5 on that email that he sent yesterday, about the read-only access to Vadar
Yes,
Mhm.
and the training. I think that's what we should do.
yep.
Instead of more paperwork, it's just crazy.
We can end up taking that at a later meeting.
Yeah.
Maybe on the 15th, or the first one in December.
All right, well, I think the sooner we get on that, the better off it'll
Yep.
be, because I think we're gonna get.
I think we got plenty
need
right
to
now
get
between now and,
accurate
yeah.
information on the
right,
budget
I'm not
to actual.
disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that the timing is, we got pre-town, and I'm not sure we wanna take and end up dealing with something else on the pre-town. And we'd have to take it and wait till the 15th.
That, this is to take it out of the reserve.
Right.
It doesn't need a pre-town.
No, I'm,
Oh, you mean
I'm
at
not-
pre-town, just do pre-town. Why
Right,
can't we
just-
do it tonight?
you could, I mean, that'd be, we don't have no paperwork is generated, I didn't generate, we
What
have to
Right.
generate a document.
What's the email? Which one is it?
It's, this one. Questions below from TA will be up for discussion.
Okay, October 25th at 3:20.
We don't have to have the form all ready to go right now, but if we
Okay.
vote, then the form can be done. Is
Okay.
that too much to do, or?
No, we can end up doing that if that's,
I just think the sooner you get the paperwork in,
yeah,
it's gonna take them at least a month's lead time to get the training set up and set a date and
okay.
do that.
Well, do we need the training?
I don't know how to use Vadar.
I know, but all we're talking about, and made this point at the meeting on Tuesday, is we're just talking about doing basic reports and queries. Can't our own finance team teach us how to do that? Do we need to spend $1,000 for, a day's worth of training just to do some?
This one,
I know, what's the estimate?
on this, I don't know. Which one is this? Oh, advisory committee,
In
Forward
one of those
miscellaneous.
letters, I believe the
That's-
finance group suggested that we did take, and I know what you're
Right.
saying,
They-
exactly,
They don't wanna train us, and I get it, because they've gotta do their actual work, which I understand. But,
But would we
I-
need things like the check registers and
no, I
that
don't
sort
think
of?
we need the check register. I think we need to know how to set up reports, so we
Right.
can push the button. If it's read-only, it's the
Right.
information that's already in there. They do the inputting, we don't touch any of that.
Right,
We're just looking at it. We need to generate the report of budget to actual,
And-
and that's what we're gonna need we're gonna ask the trainer how to do that, okay, to set up that template so that we can get the report the way we would like the report.
Yeah, and then half of
Okay.
it's not
That's
missing.
it.
I'm just saying, again, it's, we're saving them the time of doing the check register, so if we save them that time, then that's 6 hours or whatever that we could use for training purposes, rather than spend $1,000 for the software supplier to do it. I mean, this can't be
You're
that,
not training
that
me
complex
because I
to
am
run
too
basic
slow
reports.
with stuff like that.
Well-
You probably could learn in a heartbeat,
You saw this one,
not me.
I
that's what she's
understand,
talking about.
Yeah.
but I think this is the only way. it's gonna
I have other copies of this thing that didn't bring
I-
this
You
up.
don't
really-
have
I
warm,
agree.
fuzzy feeling around here.
Okay, but I mean, then if we're gonna vote on this now, I mean, I think we should
Alright.
at least ask if, do they have the time and the
All right,
capability to provide us that kind of training?
But
'Cause
I
we-
think they want us to pay for the training so that the new person can get trained by Vadar and anyone else. And
Okay,
then it comes out of the reserve, which is town money,
yeah.
and so we'd all get trained.
Okay,
So I think that's what they.
so the
That's
criteria is unforeseen and basically unbudgeted.
yep. We don't abuse it. Have we ever used it? Not in,
Yes, we did for
very
but they can
rarely.
end up paying for the newspaper article.
How do I turn in my thing for the conference? Sorry, that's totally
I'm
aside.
gonna be talking about that
Okay.
on the new business.
You know what, I probably
I
didn't
just
even,
remembered that, I'm like, what do I do with this receipt?
probably didn't even download it. I don't have a receipt.
No, they gave you a piece of paper.
I didn't get a piece of paper.
So,
Okay, I don't know.
No, they told us there was something we could download.
in order for us to take the money out of the emergency reserve, we need to take and end up, voting on that.
All right. So there's 35,000 in it now, right?
Yep.
I'm surprised he even mentioned it.
Hmm. Well, did you get a receipt when we went to that meeting the
Yes,
other
I
night?
did,
I did.
Paper one?
yes.
I
I
didn't
did
get
too.
one.
Did you ask for one?
I thought the guy said there was something we were supposed to download.
No, that was for, the manual.
Oh, whoops.
When you were paying her, that's why I stood there and I asked for a receipt.
Oh, I didn't get one. Oh, well. Ain't gonna be no richer and no.
How did you charge it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's probably wrong.
Yeah. See, I paid cash, so it came out like this.
Yes, I did too.
I did too, and I got
Take that
a
one.
handwritten receipt.
Remember to bring it.
Oh, Beverly.
So
It's all right.
for the emergency reserve and the, for Vadar, if that's the wishes, I'm looking for a motion or a second or whatever.
I'll make that motion.
Have a motion to
I'll
end up,
second that.
the amount also, Julia?
Yeah, the amount of $1,700 for access to read-only on the Vadar financial software and training.
Okay.
And I'll second that.
We have a motion and second. Discussion, under discussion. The discussion would be, is what the impact is, would be for, if we didn't get this.
We will have constant conflicts.
I think it's incumbent upon us to get this information.
Yep.
Whether, we can do it as a public record request on file every time to try to get the budget to actual in the format that we can use to track the expenses and the money that is used by the town.
Yep.
And to make sure it's going the way the people voted at a town meeting.
That would be the impact is that we would probably also impact the ability for town employees to give this in a timely manner.
Right.
Yeah, we'll speed up the process so that we don't have to ask and then
Right,
get the
if we can
paperwork.
do it on our own, and then we can do it for every meeting, not just once a month.
Right.
And we,
Okay. I have a motion and a second for $1,700 out of the emergency reserve, with the contingency that, it would be to take and end up generating reports, and the impact would be that, the timeliness of these reports is a criteria that, the town employees, aren't able to give us in a timely fashion, and would impact their ability to take and end up doing their job, maybe, or something to that effect. Okay?
Yep.
We have a motion, second, is there any more discussion? I can generate the paperwork. I would recommend that we sign this at the pre-town meeting, because I'll have it available at that time. We can vote it today, and I'll have to take and just generate that paperwork up. Okay? Everybody's got the motion? No more discussion?
Nope.
Okay, Bev,
yes.
Julie,
Yes,
Paul,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes.
because if we could do like a day-long training, maybe some of the department heads could get read-only access as well. And only one person can be on at a time. I think that's how that works. It's one license agreement, so I couldn't be
Okay.
on and you couldn't be on at the same time, but at least we could get on and hopefully generate the reports
Okay.
that we want.
I will generate the paperwork for signatures at the pre-town meeting for the $1,700 from the emergency reserve. Okay. That takes care of that particular thing also. I know there was a lot that was sent out to folks, so. As I indicated, I think, on October 11th, there was a packet that was put out, and it listed a number of things. Went on for quite a while. As far as the register, I believe, check number, date, and the amounts. That might be something that somebody wants to reference back to. I think these are the checks that they're talking about. there's no date on the thing.
Oh, that's for the warrant article,
Yes, that's for the warrant article.
yeah.
But I'm saying is that you can reference the paperwork on the 11th if anybody wants to go add those up or whatever, see what
Oh.
year,
Okay,
okay? The next thing that people should probably reference is, he ended up putting out a document sometime back. It did have, this was at the workshop, and I suggested this to members also. It's a memorandum from Collins, is to end up reading that, because that has some good information. And there was also a document that they put out. Let me tell you what the actual document is.
was that attached to the notice for that workshop meeting?
Yes,
Okay.
it's underneath.
So that
think
was the October 16th workshop meeting?
Yes, and it's a Board of Selectmen Organization Operations document that was issued, and also the memorandum from Collins on the different aspects that they looked at, an article, and make recommendations. I would venture to end up saying that you might wanna take a look at that for future reference, because I don't think, just because of the warrant article didn't appear on this warrant, it may appear on the May annual town meeting. Okay. To get into the Association of Town Finances Committees. Let me just start out with a document that I ended up getting copies of for everybody, or mostly everybody. I think I got enough for everybody. No, I don't think I have. I got those. That's the only ones I could end up getting. I only have mine plus that one, a few. And it is, let me see if I got another one.
Well, this will be on their website, right?
Yes, at the end of October, it will end up being on the website. The reason I point that out is from the session I went to on page number 4, number 5. I want to point that out. This curve was generated in February 2017 about the yield curve and the rate comparisons for going out for getting a bond and what the interest rate is going to be. I did ask the question as to whether or not the increases by the Federal Reserve were reflected in that, and the answer I got was no, and that if any increases by the Federal Reserve would end up actually doing an uptick to all of these points for whatever whatever the percentage would be. And I went off, and this was generated on the 24th, this article, current Federal Reserve interest rates. Today's Federal Reserve rate is 1.25. The Federal Reserve is expected to raise the rate in 2017 to 1.5%. It signaled it will raise rates to 2% in 2018 and 3% in 2019.
Okay,
So that will affect that curve, and I want to point those out. Depending on when they actually go out for the bond, not the band, will be whatever the interest rate is at that time.
Wow.
Okay?
People are in for
So,
one wake-up
In
call.
2000, they were supposed to end up going, in 2019 is for the bond, I think, is the way it was originally talked, when they talked about the school. So they're talking about 3%, so slightly, it's right around where they were talking about.
But they talked about what we have. I don't even know if it's relevant.
One of the other things I wanna take and end up talking about was that when I ended up talking to the presenter, which is, her name is, Cinder McInerney from the First Southwest. She is the managing director. And, cause I asked her questions about the presentation, and I wanted everybody to understand this, because this has got impact where we're gonna be talking about in the future as to what the bond is gonna be. And, I asked her those questions about whether the Federal Reserve and all of that will be impact. I did mention, and I never mentioned the community when I brought it up, and I was aghast as to the response I got. I said, our community has not ended up having an audit from 2013 up until the present, and we're just completing those audits. And she looked at me and said, Templeton. So this person is not directly, as far as our representative from Southwest, but was well aware of what is going on.
Well, right, because Mary Connie works for First
Yep.
Southwest, so
So
she would know.
I wanted to point that out, per se. The other thing from the Association of Town Finances is, everybody should have got one of these. Okay?
No, I think
And
if
what-
somebody, I thought you were gonna make some copies or something.
I could end up doing that if it's necessary. But what it does is, the 2017 edition of the Finance Committee Handbook is available, and it's can be downloaded,
Oh, okay.
okay? So you can end up actually downloading it. We may end up wanting to end up downloading this and actually put it on the website with the other documents and update the one that we have. So if you haven't got it, I will end up giving you this copy so you can
I
download it or
have it,
whatever.
I think, in my
Yeah, I don't.
clear thing.
At the MMA website?
Yeah,
Oh, Paul, you should have come
no,
with us.
this is the actual,
That was a really good meeting, hey.
Yeah, I wish I could have
I
gone.
know, what a shame, because it was really, really good.
I can
Okay.
recognize it because it's clear, and it keeps the rain, which we've had a lot of off of it. I think I have that in here.
I think everybody got a copy of some documentation that was received when we went into the auditorium, and I wanted to point out the fact that there was a warrant article that was in question by some community, and it could have affected us if they had proceeded with a warrant article, that didn't make the warrant. And I just wanna point that out to everybody, because should be something that we have referenced also sometime in the future.
Say that again?
This was a
It was the handout from
It's
when
a
we walked into
handout.
the auditorium for the keynote speaker, Margaret
yeah.
Hurley,
Oh, I
From
got
the
that at home.
municipal-
All right.
right,
law lady.
and it was very pertinent to something that we would probably end up seeing here in the future also, that the town actually got into trouble the way the warrant article was written, and they're gonna have to go back and rewrite the warrant article. If you want, I can give you a copy of this, of these.
What was good was that actually on that website that she referenced when she was speaking,
Yeah.
they have a list of all the decisions of like bylaws.
correct.
So it's a place that you can go to look up like warrant articles that might be close that we have and see how they decided and why they decided whether it was legal or not,
Uh-huh,
or
uh-huh,
what had to be tweaked.
that's correct.
Is this the same website, the MMA
Yeah,
website?
MMA website.
No, it's not on the MMA website. This is Margaret Hurley, let me get the
Hey, geez.
handout. It has her stuff right at the top. Okay. Maura Healy, it's the Worcester office of the Office of the Attorney General.
Right.
All right, do you
Could I
want,
just, yeah, let me
yeah,
just-
I need that back. Don't
I
keep
know.
it. All right.
If you want to take this one, step up for a second, and I'll read it then.
No, I'll give, you'll probably get more out of this than I will, okay?
This was the town of Standish that made the
The bylaw,
bylaw that's
Yeah.
in question. And that would be a problem for this community also,
right.
if the way that bylaw was proposed to be written.
And this was
Um,
Maura Healy,
No, it's Margaret Hurley.
oh,
I know, it's very confusing.
Yeah,
Margaret Hurley, she's the Assistant Attorney General, one of the Assistant Attorney Generals. She works out of the Worcester office,
right.
and she does the municipal, like, law part of it, so she does the bylaws. She also does the marijuana laws,
Right.
okay? Which I think we should be a proponent of in this community
Definitely.
to generate revenue.
that would look
That-
better at the exit of Route 2.
That's for damn sure.
Wouldn't it?
It would smell better.
Yeah.
No, I don't know if it would smell better, but it would be.
Well, one of the things that I was impressed at, the fact that if there is any warrant articles that any advisory committee or finance committee wants to have reviewed prior to even going into town meeting,
Right.
say like at your pre-town, you can submit those to her, and they will give you at least an initial, read on whether it would pass their muster.
Right.
The other thing I asked, and I'm putting this out because Paul didn't attend, was the fact that we have conflicting articles
Yep.
that were generated. The longstanding one is on the advisory committee, and there's one in Article 3 that contradicts that to some extent. And my question to her was that it's been a bone of contention to end up trying to get to work with this with the selectmen.
They don't want to resolve it.
And the fact that I asked if they checked any warrant articles for the town prior to submitting approval. And she basically said, no, if you have a conflict like that, please submit it and we'll review it. And they could probably pull back a warrant article or whatever. I don't know. She didn't really state, did she, as to what she would end up doing?
Well, they would review it, so,
Let them review it.
right. She has a staff of 11 people who can look at this. I mean, I know they have a lot on their plate. I did ask her about, what did I ask her about? Oh, we were talking after that session, before I went to my next session, and I waited in line and talked to her, because during her speech, she talked about a town's financial advisor. And so I asked her, I go, well, you know, I'm on advisory, I've done a lot in the town, I'm like, I don't know who our town financial advisor is.
Probably don't have one.
And she goes, no, you have one.
Who?
I asked her that.
Like who?
She goes, I can't remember right now, so I sent her an email and I haven't got a response yet. I would like to know who our town's
Oh, I would
financial
love to
advisor
know.
is. And it's not bond counsel. I go, is it
Right.
bond counsel? She's like, no, it's not bond counsel. She goes, I know the name and I just can't, she just
Right.
couldn't
There's
remember
somebody
it at
that's-
that time.
That's identified for that.
Right, and it's
Well,
like,
that shouldn't be a secret
like-
then, you know?
right, does anyone know that we have a town financial
Oh my
advisor?
God,
And-
he's probably shot himself and he's buried somewhere. Oh my God,
I
who
believe,
the hell would admit to that?
I believe this is the gentleman that they were talking about on Tuesday was Bartholomew?
Bartholomew?
Not related.
No, it's not, I couldn't
No,
tell,
I mean, instead of MEO, it's MEU.
yeah. So I don't know, I think he's the financial advisor,
Well, I don't know where the hell he's been all this time, because
because this is the first time I heard that name, and they were gonna pass stuff by him, and I
Right.
took it as he's the financial
where in
advisor.
the hell has he been?
All right, well, I mean, we've done other projects.
Yeah.
I have never known that that was part of the process, and that we actually had someone who was a financial advisor for the town.
How do we pay him?
I don't know. I don't know. I didn't get it that
Commission.
far into it.
Right.
But,
The other thing that I got
No wonder we're
of,
so well off.
out of the person from Southwest is that before they go to a bond or a ban, they have a document called the OS, and I didn't get clear definition of that. And that if you should see that, because that includes the recap sheet and a lot of financial information on the town that they have to supply to whoever, like Standard & Poor's or Moody's, to get a bond rating.
Did we vote for the ban? I don't remember.
well, there's a short-term,
Did we
the
vote
5
to do
million.
that, though?
That's in the article in the warrant. That's that article in the warrant.
No, we voted for a ban, that 500 million, did we vote to do that, or did they just do it?
we did 5 million,
5 million.
I mean,
but now they have, we voted to, when you voted for the school,
Okay,
you voted for 47 million.
okay,
So
all right,
that's,
all right.
Right.
you're
It's a
gonna
little
borrow that
fuzzy
money.
around the edges. Well, I would love to meet this financial wizard, because
Okay.
holy smoke, he ain't been doing his job.
Well, I don't know exactly what a town financial advisor is supposed to do,
Well,
so
I
I
don't
don't
know.
make that statement yet.
He shouldn't be in the goddamn mess we're in if he's doing anything.
So, okay, and this leads up to Julie's question. If you have a receipt, some type of receipt, we have to put it on the department schedule for bill paying, which I created one.
Well, we couldn't all get paid anyway, right?
Pardon me?
We couldn't all get paid anyway.
We have enough money in there to pay for 3 people at $45 and 1 at $55. And that would be taking up the annual meeting and the summer, the spring meeting.
So, I'm bringing my thing from
Well,
my credit card account.
yeah,
Yeah. And
I'll
this,
redact everything else.
I can end up sending you this, but this, and I'll probably have to take and pass this by the accountant before we vote on it. Just so I can show you what I'm gonna end up submitting.
Because I'll do that then. I'll submit my credit card account. It may not come in
Okay.
yet.
so do we all have to do one? Or we don't all have enough, right? We don't have enough for everyone to
Right, we
submit.
don't have enough for everybody,
All right, so I'll sit on mine.
okay?
No.
Bev, you do yours. No, because yours is 45, yours is 45,
And Cricket's is 45,
and Cricket's is 45, so we have enough for that in yours,
okay?
and then that's good. Yeah,
Oh.
And,
but they all have to fill out one of these forms?
yes,
Okay,
Uh,
see, where do you get these forms?
I have the form, the master form.
Okay,
I have, what I want was, that's why I did it, I wanna take and pass it by her first, see if this is okay in its form. I would end up making, taking and sending out this, people can attach their receipts, however they get the receipts, and we can end up voting at a meeting, maybe the 15th, and we can sign this and submit them at
Okay.
that particular time, okay?
yeah, because Cricket will be back by then, yeah,
Yes. And I'm figuring that we'll probably do it all at one time,
yeah,
and submit each of those
yeah, so,
different, because
right,
they're going to
No,
different
why don't
people.
You get the receipt, so why don't you put yours in?
because mine is worth more. We don't have enough in the budget to pay
Right.
for everybody,
Well,
so there's enough for you, and there's enough for Bob,
I'll
and there's
split
enough for
mine with
Cricket. We'll go out and have nachos,
yeah,
okay?
okay.
I mean,
That's
it's,
what we'll do.
last year, the 3 of us that went, paid for
us.
ourselves.
Right,
There was no money in the budget.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, you better not, you better hurry up, because it's.
So I will end up talking with her about that sometime next week, because I just created that today. I guess I can hold off on this next one, it's, because it's about the MMA meeting in January. I'll hold off, talk about that at a different time.
Yep.
All right, so that's a meeting we don't have money to go to, right?
We don't have any money, that is exactly right, we don't have any money to go to that anyway.
Didn't I just see a thing about a meeting coming up? Was that January?
No, he sent us the meeting, for the meeting we went to, after the meeting was over.
Oh, okay. Makes
Okay.
sense. Oh,
Does that answer? I'd like to have some feedback from those people that went to the different sessions, so that Paul understands what we ended up doing. I mean, I gave him mine, he's got the packet, so he can end up seeing. So anybody wanting to take and end up weighing in on what they went to, and just give a quick summary and stuff.
I can't even remember.
Oh, you wanna do capital planning? That was an eye-opener, huh?
I don't even know where to begin on that right now, but yeah, we did the capital planning, at the ATFC, and it was an eye-opener, to say the least. I will be bringing in some paperwork, there's some, information on a couple websites, some graphs that, I think would just be of interest to all, here, and I'll be bringing some to the capital planning, meeting. But, yeah, it was really nice to see a community or hear from, members of other communities that have set up a capital planning, committee, have, worked out, a lot of the bugs and have a functioning replacement plan for town equipment. And there was, talk of the, budgeting and how, they do this and how they incorporate the, financing into that capital planning budget. It was just a lot of good information. It was motivating.
Would you say that based upon the input that you got, that most communities do it that way, but we're an outlier, that we don't end up doing the process the way it should be?
We are, let's say, we're on the first step of a many-step stairway. We don't have as far as I would say, we don't have a capital plan. We have pieces of the setup for a capital plan, but we don't actually have one. Which would encompass putting in, the buildings, all the assets of the town, not just the things that departments want replaced in the next couple of years. We really need to plan for all the town's capital assets that town funds are expended upon. And one beautiful thing that I think this town could benefit by, that was just a simple, very open statement, was that along the lines of maintenance delayed is cost increased, basically. That you will be spending that money, you just will be spending more if you put it off. And I think that's something that we get stuck with in this town a lot, is trying to save money in the short term, which costs us bigger money in the long term.
The model that the capital planning should end up looking at is the model that Westminster does. They have 5 capital plans. They have one for general, one for equipment, one for building maintenance. I mean, it's just, you can't believe on how many capital plans that they have, and they fund all of those. Of course, they have a good revenue source in the dump, but we might, at some point, the community might wanna take a look at something like that.
Well, that was,
No.
No, that
At
was
a
one
capital plan.
of, the things that was brought up in that meeting is that, some communities take and make individual members of the capital planning committee, responsible for, let's say, certain groups of assets, within the town, so that they're in direct contact with, let's say, 3 department heads through the town, and that's their contact to go to. It kind of just narrows the scope each step. And would seem, if we had a full capital planning committee, to be a very good method to get the information coming into us, rather than so scattered.
I can't understand why capital planning or any of the other boards don't have members. You know? All you have to do is ask
Well,
people.
But I was gonna say, in town, I mean, I'll just say for myself, I'm looking, how many people go to the town website and look at the volunteer positions, because that is the only place they are?
How many people would even look at the town website?
And how many people would believe what it says? That's a bone of contention, because, we need a functional capital plan if we're gonna have functional finances in this town.
Yeah.
I don't see how we can get around it.
But even, yeah.
Yeah.
The younger people are gonna have to start getting involved a little bit because it doesn't look good.
Well,
unless
one of
they
the
do.
things that was bantered around was the fact that the demographics of this committee didn't represent the town. None of the committees in town represent the demographics as far as young people.
The young people are too
Unfortunately,
busy.
we had a younger person, she got a job that required her to work at night. I mean, we've had some younger people on this committee. We had a person that was a school teacher that is now, I believe he's either principal, he was a vice principal when, that's why he got off. He became principal, and I don't know, he may even be the superintendent in that community for the school system. And he was,
How did Paul get on the board? I went door to door with a petition, and he asked me questions about finances, and I said, oh boy, do I have a job with you. Look, I didn't really even know him.
yeah,
But if you let people know, if you make an attempt, I'll be damned if I'd be on a committee for 2 years and not have enough members. I'd go asking people, I'd do something.
well, in the
You have
5
to make
years.
an attempt.
In the 5 years, 5 or 6 years that I've been on, the capital planning has never had somebody from the general public put on. And that was a requirement even before they changed the bylaw to put 2 people on.
You have to go
Well,
ask
you were
people, make them feel welcome.
Before advisory, you were the general public representative.
Yeah, and just to prove a point that I showed Will before, but we're talking about, how to get people on here. If you look on this, now I just got this from, I requested it through the Board of Selectmen. This is a list of all the committees in towns, all the committees in town with all their members, supposedly. On the capital planning committee right now, it shows Will Spring, with a, appointment expires on 6/30/2017. Robert May is the at-large member, expires 6/30/2017. Doug Morrison is the BOS member. Julie Farrell is the advisory member, expires 6/30/2017. And Cheryl Richardson, the treasurer collector. I mean, and you go to the town website and under the committees and,
Oopsie.
positions available, volunteers available, it says that there's 2 members on the capital planning committee, that, it's open. According to this, it's questionable as to, is anybody on it, other than Doug and Cheryl, because they're the only ones that are listed as active.
Bernie said there were 5 or 6 people that wanted to get on this board? Who? All I know is Bernie wants to get on.
Well, one of the things,
know if there were other
one of the things
people
I do know when Jeff Ritter was on, and up until 14 and 15, there was a master list that was constantly updated with who the chairman was, contact information, email information that was printed out for every board and committee, every major board and committee. That since has gone by the way since we have had the interims.
Well, and just to continue on this just a little further, if you go to the town website under capital planning, there's 4 members listed, and the only one on that list that's presently on the capital planning committee is Doug. They still have the school committee member, the planning board
Right.
member, and such. So, you know, that's part of the problem with getting the positions filled, is, you know, if you look at the town website and the 3 areas that I just denoted, they're all conflicting.
That's generally left up to the committee chair or his designate to end up updating the website. I mean, that's been an issue for all committees and boards.
Yeah, and that's our town government.
Yeah. Anybody else want to end up talking about their session
No.
before we adjourn?
No, Bev and I went to social media.
Yep.
Probably the most interesting thing about that is records retention. All social media, you were supposed to keep a record somehow of all your tweets, of all your Facebook posts of a political nature, all your blogs. Now, backing up a blog isn't a big deal. You can back that up and keep it separate. But Facebook sometimes deletes stuff, and somebody can make a public record request for it. Someone can make a public record request for all the tweets you've sent out regarding an elementary school.
My Facebook thing, I don't do anything, I don't even pay attention. I
What
don't
you're
put
saying is that
people on it.
if there's a Facebook put out by somebody in the community, whether a board or whatever, and my name pops up on it, and I make a public request, a public records request to that individual, that they have to take and end up giving me all of those Facebook inquiries, going way
Right,
back.
You have to be specific. You can't just make, a blanket thing, but, yeah. The supervisor of public records, it's a public record.
Wow.
It has to be retained for 5 years.
And if Paul has a plan, he can't email it to us and ask for comments.
Right.
Right.
We have to come to a meeting and comment on it.
Yeah.
He can end up
You all
saying,
kinda know.
he can send it to us and said, please take and review and be prepared for comments
You can do
at the
that.
meeting.
Right, but I guess there were some advisory committees for their annual town meeting or for the warrant articles that they were at their special town meeting. They would make comments, send it to one person who would collate them, and then, but you can't do that.
Can't do
because
that.
That's
That's a meeting.
communication, and that's right. So it's, it is what it is, but that was probably the most interesting thing that I got was the record retention on social media, like Twitter. I don't know how you would back that up and keep a record of it, but God bless them. God bless America.
So if any of the, as an example, if any of the selectmen have a Twitter account and they're on it, they better have a means that they can back it up if they make it a political comment on it.
Right,
Or, well, you can make a comment, but you can't Twitter to one of your members and,
especially during a meeting. You're not supposed to be
yeah,
communicating.
she was,
by-
no?
No, that was,
Oh,
that was
I
frowned
like that.
upon. Actually, the attorney who was there frowned upon it.
Yep.
So,
Wow.
Yeah.
And then the one that Cricket and I went to, I'm trying to think. We went to one with Zach Blake, and what he was talking about was, they have something in Western Mass, and it's very similar to our MRPC, but they even do more. They have little towns up there that have like a couple hundred people in them. And they'll go out for bid for sand and different articles like that, because you can get a better deal if you're buying a
Right.
big amount. And they were talking about what Jeffrey's always talked about is working with other towns. What do you call it?
Regionalization.
Yeah, the word didn't wanna come. Regionalization. And I think that we are losing big time by not regionalizing more, and that's what they want us to do, because town budgets aren't big enough to carry the load. And I told him that, you know, we were very sad that Winching didn't want to go along with us. But regionalization is something they're trying to push for a lot of small communities, because it's economically not feasible for them to carry the whole load by themselves. So that ended up being a pretty interesting meeting.
No.
I enjoyed him very much. And the MRPC guy, well, it's not an MRPC, I forget what they call it up there, but it's pretty much kind of the same thing, only they do more than MRPC.
It's more like a county
Yeah,
system.
county government
Like
almost,
the
like you said.
Franklin, there's a Franklin County Regional Government, and
Yes.
they have meetings and, you know, it's like consortium buying, so.
Isn't that the one that they reached out to end up getting either accounting or treasury done by the community, and they were
Yeah, I think you're
fully
right.
booked?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
so
that's
that was
when Marco was
interesting.
here. Yeah,
And I told him, I said, other towns don't wanna do business with us, which
No.
is too bad, because then going forward, you can't always blame somebody for something that was done before.
Just to take and wrap up, my assessment of that whole, the annual meeting, and this is not only this year, it is well worthwhile for any advisory or finance committee individual to attend.
Yeah.
To, one, go to these sessions, and number two, to network with some of the folks, because we end up sitting with the person from Southborough, and I think we had a great discussion with that individual. It was very, I don't know everybody else,
It
but
was a beautiful day, and I could've got a lot of windows washed. But I gotta tell you, I was very, very glad that I went. I did not feel like I had missed, you know, I'm glad I went. It was worth going to.
I was gonna say, just on my, that was the first one I ever attended, and I was very, very pleased. You know, like with everything, some of the stuff you know, is just beyond where I'm at necessarily, but, the budgeting 101 and the capital planning, great ideas, good insight, and it just gives you, it gave me just something to shoot for.
Yep.
And, an idea that it is doable.
Yep.
And that, like one of the guys said, sometimes being the pain is a good thing, or whatever, however he worded it, but, you know, sometimes committees and members of committees need to be a little bit, like, no, or objectionable, to make things work, to make things change.
It takes, yeah, you have to
Yeah.
be courageous to take a stand.
well, I know that we've had, over the last year, there's been some stands by members, they've been vocal, and that's the only way that there's been some changes in town government. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Second,
Second,
All right, you can.
All in
get-
favor?
aye,
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
yeah, right.
Opposed.